Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the podcast for Let's Read About the Presidents. Tonight, as our final president, we're going to look at Franklin Pierce, number 14, Franklin Pierce, who was born November 23rd, 1804, in Hillsborough, New Hampshire. He died October 8th, 1869. Only 65, that's pretty young. Young by our standards today. He was called Young Hickory of the Granite Hills. He was an Episcopalian. He went to Bowdoin College, 1824, and he studied to be a lawyer. His father was Benjamin Pierce. Mother was Anna Kendrick Pierce. Franklin's wife was Jane Means Appleton Pierce. That's interesting. Franklin Graham's wife's name is Jane Austen. Franklin Pierce has a wife named Jane. That's cool. No coincidence, of course, but that would be cool. His children was Franklin Pierce Jr. I'm guessing that's a junior. Frank Robert, and then Benjamin Pierce. Okay, named after his grandfather. Okay. Military service, Mexican War, enlisted as a private in New Hampshire Volunteers, but commissioned as a colonel in the regular army in February 1847, then promoted to major general and resigned, commissioned in 1848. His political life included being a New Hampshire legislator and Speaker of the House in New Hampshire, I believe. Speaker of the Legislature in New Hampshire, a U.S. Representative, and a U.S. Senator. One term as a Democrat of 4 years. He was not nominated for a second term. That's why he left office. His vice president was William Rufus Devane King, who died before serving position. So really, no vice president, honestly. Election of 1852. Franklin Pierce got 254 votes. Winfield Scott only 42 in the electoral. That's low. That's low. Um, Popular vote, Pierce, 1,601,274 votes. And Mr. Scott, whoever he is, 1,386,500. So about 220,000 vote difference. Okay, interesting. Cabinet for Mr. Pierce. William L. Marcy, Secretary of State. Secretary of the Treasury, James Guthrie. Secretary of War, Jefferson Davis. Attorney General, Caleb Cushing. Secretary of the Navy, James Dobbin. Postmaster General, James Campbell. And Secretary of the Interior, Robert McClellan. Okay. Franklin Pierce was the first. Excuse me. Franklin Pierce was the first president to be born in the 19th century. Let's see about that. Yes. Well, yes, he was because Miller was born in 1800, and the 19th century started in 1801. So that is correct. That's correct. The Pierces were the first family to enjoy hot and cold running water in the family bathroom on the second floor of the White House. The Pierce family had the first Christmas tree in the White House. Did we know Fort Pierce, Florida, is named after Pierce's older brother, Benjamin Kendrick Pierce, a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army? Nice. Supreme Court appointments, one person, and that is Mr. John Campbell. Also on, it's James Campbell. Okay, could be related. But John Campbell, 1853. State of the Union for Mr. Pierce's time. U.S. population of 1853 was 23 million. 23,191,876 people. National debt in 1857, 28,700,000 dollars. I'm rounding it up. How's that different than Millard? Wow, there's a big difference. It's a big difference. Under President Fillmore, the national debt of 1853 was 59 million. U.S. debt under Franklin Pierce, 29,700,000. So that's a big gap. That is, let's see, 31. I would say that's 30. That is 31 million difference. No nothing party. No nothing party. No nothing party, so called because its members were to keep their beliefs private. When asked to explain the party, they replied, I know nothing. That's funny. In response to fear of waves of immigrants entering the nation, many of whom were Catholic, many Americans feared these new arrivals would be more loyal to the Pope than to the United States. Others worried that the immigrants would take away American jobs. That's happened. That's happened in our time. So party membership consisted mainly of the working class of the North. In 1854, the Know Nothings gained control of the Massachusetts legislature. They ran former President Millard Fillmore as their presidential candidate, 1856, and he captured about 9% of the votes. 9. Still, when the party refused to take a stand on slavery, many abandoned the Know Nothings and rejoined the new Republican Party instead. The Know Nothings died out in the early 1860s. Ay, ay, ay. Franklin Pierce was the only president to keep his cabinet intact for his entire term. So he didn't fire anyone. Mr. Pierce was the only elected president not nominated by his party for re-election. Treaty of Kanagawa. The Treaty of Kanagawa was signed on March 31st, 1854, between Commodore Matthew Perry and the Japanese. Interesting. Allowing the United States to use the island nation as a coal refueling stop, as well as provide other supplies as necessary in 2 ports. The Japanese also promised favorable treatment toward any shipwrecked American crews or those needing help with the repairs. Trading rights would be granted in the treaty a few years later. Oh, that's nice. Sumner Brooks episode. In May of 1856, Senator Charles Sumner of Massachusetts, a staunch abolitionist, berated Southerners in a lengthy speech and singled out his colleague, Senator Andrew Butler, South Carolina, for particular criticism. Mr. Butler was not in attendance that day, but his nephew, Congressman Preston Brooks, decided to take action. Brooks entered the Senate chamber on May 22nd and began beating Sumner unmercifully with his cane, leaving him unconscious. Brooks resigned but was soon reelected and considered a hero by many Southerners, who enthusiastically sent him canes. Sumner, too, won acclaim for having suffered for the cause of abolition. Well, really no win in that. Pierce had the lowest grade at Bowdoin College at the end of his sophomore year, just after changing his habits. He graduated 3rd in his class, which also included Nathaniel Hawthorne and Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Oh. Let's do another one because we're getting to the 15th president. And this dude is considered the worst. And I'll get to him next.